Hello, it's Joe the Gunsmith down at Alpha 1 Drop Zone again. And I'll talk a little bit more about the BM-59s. I'll show you a little bit about the receivers and different configuration mill cuts on the receivers. These Beretta versus the Springfield versus the Beretta. And of course, Springfield Armory. When I say Springfield Armory on the BM-59s, I'm talking about the commercial Springfield Armory in Geneseo, Illinois. It's the Reese family started it and still are owners and operators of it. It basically started around 1970, mid-70s somewhere, I can't remember the exact date. And versus original GI Springfield Armory, which is commissioned by George Washington in 1789, which was located in Springfield, Massachusetts. It doesn't exist anymore except as a museum. During the Vietnam War era in the 60s, the Department of Defense decided to contract with commercial manufacturers, Colt being one of them, and shut down Springfield Armory. I think Robert McNamara was instrumental in that, and that's a whole other story, but I just brought it up so people that don't know realize that the Springfield Armory exists today as a commercial enterprise. It's not the original Springfield Armory. It's a trademark name now. And enough credit really can't be given to the Reeses. If they wouldn't have trademarked the Springfield Armory name, there'd be all kinds of people claiming to be Springfield Armory. But they trademarked the name and they kept the spirit alive. And during the 70s, they went over and made a deal with Beretta to buy the existing BM-59 parts and build up the BM-59s through the late 70s all the way through the 80s until they restructured and dropped pretty much everything that they were doing and just concentrated on the 1911s and the M1A, which is a commercial version of the M14. And the original Beretta receivers were imported in and they had different mill cuts in them. You look at this one, it standard grand configuration up here on the shoulder, where one of the Springfield Armory receivers, they had original Beretta receivers and some of them are milled out halfway, or a couple mill cuts that were just mill cuts for the full auto parts. This one, you can see it's kind of rounded right here. That's so your selector switch would fit in and work. Although it doesn't have any other modifications for the select fire parts, because they had, partially finished Beretta military receivers. This mill cut's in there. And same thing on the Beretta receiver. It doesn't have any of the cuts you need for fitting the full auto parts in it, but it does have a hole here where the selector, where the trip lever shaft fit, the trip lever fit on. And, of course it doesn't have the shaft in there, so it's still considered a semi-auto receiver. But if you run across different importations, whether it's the 62 or the 69 or the 59, and you see these funny little cuts like right here, that's what it was. It was for partially finished receivers for the full auto parts, which all the semi-autos, they were manufactured where you couldn't put full auto parts on without modifying the receiver even more and get you in trouble with the BATF. On your commercial manufactured clones, they usually don't have any cuts outside what it takes to fit the Beretta modified parts. They're basically grand configuration with no select fire modifications at all. And different companies mill them out differently. You can see there's a little bit of difference in the way the legs were cut on a Beretta style versus a commercial clone. Function wise, doesn't make much difference as long as everything's within specs and the magazine will fit in and all the parts will work. You have nitpickers out there where this is better than that. Basically, if it works and it's done right, you won't be able to tell the difference between any of them. I'll show you this one here. No, I should mention on this one, we've been looking at it. This one's made by Golden State Arms, but it has no Golden State Arms markings. It still has the M1 Garand markings on it. Some of the Golden State Arms, they mark them on the side here, and same way with the Santa Fe and National Ordnance. Some of them are marked on the side with just hand stampings on the side. Some of the National Ordnance and Golden State Arms have all the Garand markings taken off, and then they re-stamped them with Golden State Arms or National Ordnance and BM-59 logo and everything. And some of the Golden State Arms will actually have a license by Beretta on this flat section right by the rear sight. Just depending on the time they were manufactured. And the story I heard that originally Golden State Arms did have a license from Beretta to copy the Beretta BM-59, but Beretta saw the quality was lacking compared to what they were expecting, so they kind of told National Ordnance and Golden State Arms to cease and desist putting their licensed stampings on. This one here is one of about a dozen that I made out of D-mill receivers back in my early 20s, going on 35 years ago. This is the only one I've retained. I, of course, sold. I was doing it for income, so you can't keep guns that you're trying to be a gunsmith for a living. I did manage to keep one of them. And if you ever run across any of the American style BM-59s that are marked on the side Great Plains Armory here, and with a number, that was how I differentiated between everybody else's clones and mine. And I guess it's a shameless self-promotion at the time. And mine will also be marked on the hill. They still have the Garand markings, but it'll be marked on the hill, BM-59, and then it'll have the 308 instead of 30 M1 markings. And as I said earlier, when a re-weld is done correctly, it's very hard to tell the difference between those and an unmodified, unwelded, non-D-mill receiver. And the heat treat is the same. The metal we use to fill up any of the gaps from the D-milling is good matching metal to the receiver, and everything heat treats within specs, and they're perfectly safe, and you'll probably never wear them out. A bad D-mill re-weld, you'll see pock marks in the welding areas. You'll see contours that aren't quite right, and you may even see, if they've been used quite a bit or even a little, you'll see cracks developing in the re-welded areas. That's something you just have to take each individual gun as you get it. But as far as being scared of a re-weld, if it's done correctly, they've been shot for years. This one's had a couple thousand rounds put through it, been changed around here and there throughout the years. Never had a problem with them. But I have seen some bad D-mill and re-weld receivers. The bad ones, stay away from them. Use them for wall hangers. And if you're really committed, I guess, to it, you can get them normalized, fix anything that's wrong with with welding whatever needs to be re-welded, and then reheat treating them. Whether it's worth your time and effort, that's up to you. It'd probably be better to buy one that is in better shape, dissect it for parts, or just get a Garand receiver and modify it, or get one of the current castings that are available and modify it. That's why they're charging $600 excuse me, for a finished receiver now. Where, when I first started out, you could buy a Springfield M1A receiver brand new for $150. You could buy a Beretta receiver, if you could get the Reese's apart with any, for about $200. Now they're double, triple that, which isn't uncommon for just about anything gun related nowadays. And it's just up to you on whether it's worth the money to you, or whether it's worth the time and effort if you do it yourself. Just a little tidbit, if you do ever run across a Great Plains Armory Mark I, now you know what it is. Now, I've always been the sole owner and employee of Great Plains Armory. Anybody that, and there has been a couple of people that have tried to steal that name over the last 3 decades. They weren't very successful at it, but I am the only employee that Great Plains Armory ever had, and so I know everything about anything that's got a Great Plains Armory Ordnance stamp on it, which is just an Ordnance bomb with a GP in the middle, or anything marked Great Plains Armory. Very curious on this receiver. If it was an original Garand receiver, just a receiver alone probably be worth $1,000 or more. 4-digit M1 Garand receiver. Too bad it was a V-mill. Well, that's all I have to say for now. We'll see you next time around.